Welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and I'm here on Monday with Ross Grimsley, the old left-hander, former Baltimore Oriole, Cleveland Indian, Montreal Expos, and am I leaving one team
Somebody
out?
else.
What's that? And
Somebody
Cincinnati
else.
Red. And Cincinnati Red.
That's
I
the
didn't
first
mention that.
team. Yeah, that was my
Yep.
first team.
And also Luke Jackson, managing editor of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And we are here for the next 25 minutes to a half an hour to talk a little O's baseball and anything special that's going on in the world of baseball. And we're brought to you by our friends at AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning. And their website is ajmichaelsheat, ajmichaels.com. ajmichaels.com. Great rebates, discounts, and they kill all the viruses in your home, do all great stuff. So get in touch with them if you need service for your air conditioner and heater. Okay. We're also brought to you by the new Atmans at Harbor Point, just around the corner, a stone's throw from Fells Point. Harbor Point. Everything you want in a deli, plus a bar, and a bar you can sit down at and watch the O's game like you could tonight. You could watch, well, not tonight. I'm sorry. The Orioles are off tonight. So you can't do that. But tomorrow night, when they tee off against the Washington Nationals in D.C. at 6:35, you could be eating a great corned beef or roast beef sandwich at the bar and watching some baseball and taking advantage of the great pickle bar that they have there too. Not pickleball, pickle bar at the new
Pickle bar.
Athens, Harbor Point. Guys, wanted to pick up on some great news. You know, we tend to poke whatever is semi-controversial or something might be going wrong, but we had some great news for the Orioles this week, although it was tinged with a little offbeat news with Grayson Rodriguez going on the IL to make room for Kyle Bradish, or did he make room for John Means?
He made room for John Means.
Okay. No, Dylan Tate made room for John Means.
Um,
It was Dylan Tate that made room, and then it was Grayson made room for Kyle. Anyway, the good news is that there's nothing serious wrong with Grayson
doesn't
Rodriguez.
seem like anything serious.
Nope.
And
Looks like
if the press box cover jinx struck again, we apologize. But Mike Elias has assembled a really good starting pitching depth, and so we think that Mike's going to be able to power through the press box cover jinx.
Yep, we think that. We think that, and we keep our fingers crossed for that. But we also got the great news that Kyle Bradish and John Means came back, and I was so encouraged by Bradish's performance. I thought it was absolutely terrific against the Yankees in a day game. And then just 3 days later, Saturday night, John Means was absolutely sensational going, am I right, Luke? 7 1/3?
I think he went seven,
Okay.
and
I thought he
then
came in and got,
no,
and
I think it was 7 innings, 85 pitches, and I think they got more out of him than they could have
you're
possibly
absolutely
hoped
right.
for.
He gave up 2 hits, struck out 8, no
And
walks,
then CNL
seven
came in,
complete
and then
innings.
the ninth inning drama happened.
Let's start with that good news because I want to pivot to some handling of the bullpen by Brandon Hyde, which
Mhm.
I'm not so pleased with. Ross, your impressions of what you heard or saw of Means' performance, because that was just unbelievable stuff.
I tell you, all the pitchers over the last 7 games, I think the last time they did any of that was in 1980, give up less than 2 or less runs. So that's very impressive. The guys are pumping out, 6, 7 innings at a crack, which is really impressive. But Means, I did see some highlights of him. He looked like the guy of old, changing speeds and. I think he had a slider that he was throwing pretty well. He had command of all of his pitches, changing speeds really well, keeping them off balance. That's how he has success, and that was impressive. And I think the fact that hopefully he has bounced back from that start and see how he feels in between and his next start. So that was a good sign for not only him but for all the guys in the starting staff now.
Luke, that start was very similar to his start when he came back last year in Cleveland. So maybe
Mhm.
it's he likes the air in Ohio, but we thought he was all the way back then. I'll pivot back to Ross and ask him the same thing I'm asking you. Do you think we got to pump the brakes a little on Means because of the nature of his injury history?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the Cleveland start. I thought his stuff was even better this time around. If you
Oh, no
remember
question. Yeah.
that Cleveland start, by the end of that outing, he was like 88, 89 miles an hour. He held his velocity throughout this outing. And that was probably the best command that he's had certainly since that Cleveland outing, and maybe even since the no hitter. I mean, that was the best combination of stuff and command that he's had since that no hitter. No question about it. And that was about 3 years ago, almost to the date. So that was super, super encouraging. Now, as Ross said, it's about how does he recover? How does he feel in the days after? How does he feel during his side session? Because now he's going to try to throw in the major leagues every 5 days. And that's something that he hasn't done for any length of period of time in about 3 years. And obviously, if he can do that, that's a huge lift for the Orioles.
Ross, pivoting back to you on this question, you've brought pitchers back from rehab. You did the job a couple times that Scotty McGregor did for the Orioles, where
Right.
he oversaw a rehab. Is is the stuff he had, provided he feels okay the next day and the day after, is there still a lot of concern with him, or you just roll the
Well,
dice and go
I
with it?
think in this day and age, there's always concern with
Yeah.
every pitcher. You just never know. I think what got him in trouble at the very start was the fact that he came and was throwing harder when this trouble began. So we got back to pitching the way he was way he had success, changing speeds, not trying to overpower guys, and actually listening to some of the Kramer, trying to get guys out on ground balls first or second, try to get them out early in the count, and then go for the strikeout when you actually need to go for it. With maybe a guy in scoring position, you need an out, and you don't want to have the guy put it in play. But whatever they're doing it right. But getting back to Means and Bradish for that matter, see how they feel on their side day, see how they throw, and that's the big key, and just take it from there. And I mean, these guys may need push them back a day, which is great. And with the extra, when you get Rodriguez back and possibly Wells back, and you need to maybe piggyback a guy, they got that option to do that. And obviously, with the two guys that are injured, there's a chance that they could go down on rehab and get their work in down there and get ready. But like you said, they got depth, and that is the key to keeping your pitchers healthy, in the bullpen and starting.
Luke, we got to see Albert Suarez yesterday for a couple innings in relief. And I think some of us were wondering why the heck he took him out of the game uh, after Mike Baumann came in and immediately walked two batters. And I don't know. Um, what were your impressions with Suarez out of the pen yesterday? He looked just like he looked to me when he started for the Orioles.
Yeah, he was pumping strikes, and he gives them a couple things that they didn't have a lot of before he went to the bullpen. And that's number one thing is velocity from the right side. He's up to 98. He's got a really live arm, and that 98's moving all over the place. And you could tell in the three starts he made. I know the Oakland one wasn't as good as the other two, but really live arm, a lot of life on the fastball. And the other thing he provides is a real length option that they don't really have from the right side other than Suarez. I know Aiken gives them a little bit of that from the left side, but now they have a real option if something happens to a starter early in the game, like they get knocked out early
And
by a
they need three and two
comebacker.
thirds or four and a
Yeah,
third.
yeah, or they get starting pitcher gets hit with a comebacker first pitch of the game. Now they have a real length option behind something like that happening. So I think that and also I think that he could provide a potential late inning option with the velocity that I mentioned. So That's very interesting. A very interesting bullpen addition, and I think everyone saw where that was probably going once the Orioles got more of their regular starters back. And you looked at Suarez and you thought, he could be a real interesting addition to this bullpen.
Yeah. Um, Luke, one other thing,
Hmm.
Cole Irvin.
Hmm.
I've kind of look, it wasn't easy for me to stick with him, but I watched him pretty carefully for 2 years in Oakland because I had him on my fantasy team one of those years. And he was a guy that I kind of picked out. I watched him in an exhibition game against the Dodgers, like in 2000, like 19, I think it was, like strike out 7 or 8 guys in 5 innings. And I said, this guy can pitch. He's been a real revelation to Oriole fans this year.
Yeah, I think that this is what the Orioles probably thought they were getting when they traded for him and gave up a pretty good prospect, Daryl Hernandez, a guy who's making a few waves in Oakland this year, having a nice little debut season for himself. But it just seems to me that Cole might have been a little obsessed with velocity, certainly this spring
Hmm.
and maybe even last year, and he's gotten back to what he does, and that's commanding the baseball. And that was something that was a little bit of an issue for him. Early last year, he was having trouble with walks, which is not Cole Irvin. That's not his game. And this year, he just seems to be doing a much better job of dotting. If he can work the corners, uh, he's really effective. And uh, the Reds were pounding the baseball into the dirt against him, and he was just dumping in change-ups, two-seamers, four-seamers, slider, and he was locating all of them. And he works at such a great tempo that
Yeah.
I guess everyone works at a great tempo with the pitch clock, but he was just on Saturday, excuse me, on Friday, he was just getting the ball and throwing it.
It
He was
was
just
pitch
playing
and
catch with the
catch. Yeah,
catcher.
it was pitch and catch.
And I think at one point there might have even been like a six pitch inning in there. And if the bullpen was totally gassed, which it wasn't, he probably could have gone the distance. And Brandon Hyde opted to play the matchups the third time through the order. He got into the seventh inning on like 80 something pitches.
Yeah.
And it might have even been less than that. So, yeah, it's just terrific. And it's been a carryover from his last few starts prior to that.
Ross, I guess in this day and age, I mean, the old adage, you can never have too much pitching and you can never have too much starting pitching. What do they do provided everybody stays healthy for the next 10 to 15 days? And now Grayson's back. I guess one thing they do is Grayson doesn't go as deep for a couple starts. So you do maybe piggyback a guy, or that's the game that Suarez pitches three after Grayson goes four. What do you think they do if they have six healthy, fully, loaded starting pitchers?
I think they'll have, with Wells. Wells may go to the bullpen,
Well,
but
I'm counting Wells in the bullpen.
yeah,
I'm counting right now
right,
Burns, Kramer, Irvin, Bradish, Means, and then Rodriguez is six. I'm not
right.
even counting Wells as a
Yeah,
starter.
with that, I mean, just like I said, you can piggyback uh, one of the two, whoever, and with Rodriguez, and depending on who the team is, where their power is, basically left or right, you can start who, and you can use that forever. How long? Unfortunately, there's a chance probably that somebody will come up with an
Yeah,
injury of some type. Hopefully not
blister, hit
bad.
hit by a
Exactly.
comebacker.
Exactly. And who twist an ankle, hopefully not a serious arm injury, but you got that a possibility. But I think piggybacking is probably what they'll do, so the guys will get their innings and let one guy go longer one outing, and let another guy go longer the next outing. So they can do this. And the way these guys are pitching is just phenomenal. I mean, they're
Yeah.
giving you innings, they're throwing up zeros. I know Cole Irwin, he
Ross,
got 20 and two-thirds innings without giving up a run.
Ross, I remember it was not, I believe, wasn't it 74 in early September? You guys had already come back from like about 8 or 9 games back at the Red Sox, you'd already caught him right about Labor Day. And then I think you pitched a shutout on Labor Day
Yeah.
in a doubleheader. And the other pitcher, I forget who it was, you might
Mike
Cuellar,
Cuellar.
Cuellar.
We
And
slowballed them to death.
you had back-to-back shutouts, but there
Yeah.
was about a 20-day period where I'm not saying you all pitch shutouts all the time, but it was something like 60 innings and you
It
might
was
have given up 5 runs or something
pretty
like
close. McNally started it against, I think, Kansas City. He had a ninth inning where they got no runs, and then we reeled off some. And I had a shutout going until the ninth inning, until the eighth inning. Charlie Spikes hit a home run in Cleveland, and then somebody
bastard.
got to
The
say,
bastard.
I know. But no, we were hot. And I tell you what, when your starting pitching is hot, and they give you innings, and this reminds you a lot of that. What was going on back then now, and that is
Yeah.
really a great thing to see. Plus,
Yeah.
you're getting some hitting, and we didn't have the hitting back then that these guys got. I mean, they are doing a little bit of everything.
So, guys, I wrote a piece. Luke, you edited it, so you read it. I wrote a piece about Brandon Hyde's handling of the bullpen, and I don't think they're exactly handling it with a great aplomb. Uh, you know, Craig Kimbrel's 35. He'll be 36 by the end of this month. Based on the innings pitched going into the game against Oakland last Friday, a week ago Friday. I mean, he's on pace to pitch like 80 some innings this year. He'd been used in half the games. Uh, I just never thought in a million years, they obviously scouted him last year,
Mhm.
that they would have given him this kind of workload this early in the season, Luke. And I doubled down on my criticism. I didn't think he belonged in the game on Sunday a week ago after what had happened Friday against Oakland. And then he comes back 4 days later. They kind of treat it as if nothing happened. And he looks sensational Friday night. And I said, well, wow, we bit a bullet. We dodged a bullet there. He's going to be okay. And then Brandon uses him the next night. And I just didn't understand that. Did you agree with going back to back with him again?
Yeah, if your closer says that before that game that he's ready to roll, then I think you probably err on the side of trusting him. I mean, he's only thrown something like 50. He had only thrown something like 15 pitches in the past week prior to that. If he can't go back to back, then you probably just can't use him back to back ever. You know what I mean?
Again, the
And
back to back, we're talking about a guy who had almost looked like a certainty to go on the IL a
right.
week ago. A week ago today, it looked like for certain they were saying, well, right now he's not going to go on the IL. He had a really stiff upper back. I don't I don't get it. I let him savor that he's back, and that seemed like the perfect game to 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 bank on Jake Webb, who had just given you a sensational 2 outings against the Yankees, and now all of a sudden he's back as the unfavored son. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
get
tell
it
you
at
what,
all.
that was one of my favorite things about that Yankee series was how Jacob Webb looked. I
Well,
mean,
but the reason that Jacob Webb worked that way was because Brandon didn't have any
right,
choices. And
right.
I asked Ross, I'll ask you this. What comes first? If a pitcher knows that the manager is not trusting him, and then he comes in games, doesn't that doubt from the manager seep into his psychology? Because it looked like this week against the Yankees, Jake Webb, there was no other option. Webb came in, he delivered, and then he came back again and delivered. And I just thought it warranted more confirmation from his manager at the same time being resistant to going back to Craig Kimbrel again and again.
You look at his stats from last year, and back-to-back outings, he wasn't. He didn't have a lot of success.
especially the second half of the year.
Yeah,
Especially.
and you look at. I think he pitched 6 innings in spring training. Now he's going to be your closer. Yeah, 6 innings. That's you got 6 weeks down there, and you pitch 6 innings. I think they side on the side of caution too much. Let
Right.
the guys get their work, but he's not. He's an older guy. You don't want to back to back in April. I just would shy away from that, especially because you're in places where the weather is not, it hadn't warmed up yet. When it warms up, you got to be careful. And I think you got other guys that can fit in and
I
with
think this
Kimbrel,
is the time.
he
I
can
think
he
this is the
can
time now you got to find out if Webb can either be a meaningful part of your bullpen or he needs to be jettisoned. You know.
Yeah, he's thrown pretty well. I like his stuff, and just watching him throw the few times I have. But Kimbrel, you got to be a little more careful with him. I mean, the last 5 games, he's walked 6 guys in 2 2/3 innings, 2 1/3 innings, whatever. Give up 4
Remember
runs, but
last.
you can't. You have to. His past shows that you have to be a little careful with him. If you don't have to pitch him back-to-back game, and the guy's going to come out and say, "I can pitch." I
Yeah,
don't
of
care
course
if he's
he's going
throwing
to say
every
he can
day.
pitch. Right.
He's going to.
He said
But
he could pitch
you got to
too.
look at the past, the numbers. You got to see how he's throwing, how he threw, and gauge it off of that.
Luke, not that I don't want to trust his ability to assess himself, but they came out on him last Sunday when he was obviously in some distress. He couldn't get the
Yeah,
ball. And he
he should have
said he
come
was
out.
okay
Yeah,
and
yeah,
gave up the game winning home run.
yeah. He probably should have come out of that game. Yeah, and to your point, yeah, Jacob Webb is quietly having actually a pretty good season.
Yes, he
And
is.
he's given up a lot of inherited runners, and so that probably shapes our opinion of him a little. He's got an ERA below 2, to Ross's point. And like I was saying a couple minutes ago, his performance against the Yankees, particularly that first game where he had the 4-out save through the teeth of that Yankees
And
lineup,
he got three
that's as
strikeouts, right?
that's as good as I've ever seen him look.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's been an Oriole for that long, but that was terrific
That was
stuff.
big time stuff.
Yeah, and that's going to be, if he can continue that, that's a big boost for the bullpen, because as Kevin Brown points out on the broadcast every time he comes in, and rightly so, is that he's a right-handed reliever who can handle himself against lefties, and sometimes that's hard to find. But because of that changeup, that allows him to defend himself against lefties.
Right. I point out, Ross, that last year at the age of 34 and 35, Kimbrel pitched 69 innings, which was the most he pitched since 2000, not 19, the most he pitched since 2008, 18.
Yeah.
So my point is, he was on pace a week ago to possibly throw like 82 innings. And I'm saying to myself, this job description this year called for him to throw about 55 innings and really be smart in usage of him, especially in the first half. And I get it. When the games start and you're trying to win that night's game, you almost go, well, I'll do it. I'll give him some rest tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks go by and you never really got him the rest he needed. They have got to force feed Brandon Hyde into giving him space between some outings. And I'm not saying he can't ever do back-to-backs,
Sure.
but I think 4 days after he almost went on the IL, that was a little reckless in my thinking.
I mean,
Well,
if
also,
you got guys, yeah, you got guys doing the job in the bullpen. Some other guys, you might as well, with Kimbrel's situation, you have that luxury to do that, because the last couple of years we've seen it before. The bullpen gets worn out in August or September, but with your starters going like they're going now, and giving these guys a break, there's a perfect opportunity to get some other guys in the game. So I think the past last year with Kimbrel, you got to be careful with him. I mean, I think they knew that coming in. So you
Yeah.
just have to pick your spots and till it warms up. And, like I said, for the second half.
One great aspect of it is, boy, did Cano really tightrope walked a tightrope. He was
Yeah,
like
I'll tell you what, Cano should have gotten a strikeout the first batter he faced. He
yeah,
really got squeezed during that at bat. And but the thing was, I think a couple of batters later, he actually got a makeup call
yeah.
on a sinker that was about two baseballs down. He got that called a strike. So that umpire, I don't know if the umpire like kind of ran out of gas in the ninth inning. He was missing calls left and right in that ninth inning. So maybe that's what Craig Kimbrel can go with. Hey man,
But
the umpire was just,
but
Yeah.
I have to but I have to be honest, Cano, the way he pitched late last year, again, you have to factor in how overused he was. It
right.
had me questioning whether he was really the man in front of Kimbrel, or he wouldn't be, wouldn't fall backwards.
No, he looks great.
And he's been pitching terrific baseball, terrific baseball. So look, we're giving heaping praise on the Orioles for the one hand on how they brought back and didn't panic with Bradish and Means. And the funny thing, Ross and Luke, is that Brandon Hyde does exactly what I'm accusing him of not doing with his closer or his bullpen. He does with his position players. He never buries McKenna. McKenna, whenever he's up, he's going to play a little bit,
Right.
even over Mullins.
Right.
And he always finds a way to give Rutschman plenty of rest. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was really sharp yesterday, giving Gunnar a day off his feet other than
Mm-hmm.
batting. But then when it comes to the bullpen, Luke, he's got his circle of trust, which all managers do,
Right.
but he really treats his other guys like the redheaded stepchilds. And
Well, it's funny you mentioned that he had to bring Bauman into the game yesterday to get some work because he had barely pitched over the last
right,
10 days.
right.
And he looked like he hadn't pitched over the last 10 days. You know what I mean? I think he had pitched like once or twice during that period. But yeah, to your point, every manager has his circle of trust, and Brandon's no different. Buck Showalter was no different. But to your point, on the position player side, no one's going to rot on the bench.
Yep.
Everyone's going to get in
He
there.
gets everybody
And
playing time, and they
and
all
yep,
understand when they're going to play.
right. And Mateo knows he's going to play against lefties. McKenna knows that he's got a good shot to be in there against the lefty. They know their roles and they know what they're going to be asked to do, and that's probably one of the reasons why he's getting such good production out of all 13 of those position player roster spots.
Ross, that's one other thing. We talk about managers and communication. You would agree, watching year and a month, that his position players have a pretty darn good sense of when they're going to play. His relievers, the three that I'm saying aren't in his circle of trust, they must sit out there like kind of like looking at each other, going, "What the heck what are we out of here for?"
Well, you know what you tell those guys?
Yeah, you're
When you
getting a
get your
major league check.
opportunity, get people out.
Yeah,
You get people out and you'll pitch. And that's the bottom line.
yeah,
That's it. And everybody, I know, like we were talking about earlier, back in the 70s, somebody got hot. I know Earl run Tippy out there till he couldn't pick his arm up, And if you're dealing, you're going to be in the game. And unfortunately, we only had a couple guys, two or three guys that they would use, and then the other guys would come in when double hitter or somebody got knocked out early, which didn't happen that often. So you got to get when you get your opportunities, you got to be ready. And the old and I told pitchers this many times. You sit around and don't pitch for a while, you need to do something
to
to
keep
stay
yourself
ready.
sharp.
Well, yeah, and there's things you can do to do that. So when you do get your opportunity, you don't crap the
You don't have
bed.
an excuse of I wasn't
Really,
sharp. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I know people. I personally, I sat for 21 days and started, and I could have moped and whined and whatever, but went out and threw 5 innings, didn't give up nothing. But you tried to stay ready. You're not happy about that, but you got to do things to get your opportunity, and it's you got to get the manager to trust you, and that's how you do it.
All right, guys, I think we've talked it out today. Orioles off tonight. They'll play two in Washington, off Thursday night, and then a weekend series at home against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then who comes to town, Luke? I don't have the schedule in front of me.
That's a very good question. I know Seattle is a part of this homestand.
Arizona, I think.
Yes, it's Arizona, Toronto, and Seattle.
Okay.
That's
Right.
right. You got Toronto for three. A really troubling season with the Blue Jays there. I don't know how much longer.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
their big guns just aren't producing.
Yeah.
Bichette's having a down year, Springer's having a down year, and Vlad. Although Vlad hit a grand slam yesterday, maybe that
And
gets
Bo
him going.
Bichette's having a terrible season.
Really is.
Not a Bo Bichette season. All right, guys. We'll talk again next Monday night. We'll probably do it a pinch earlier, like maybe 3-ish next Monday. Does that work for you guys?
Perfect. Hey, well,
All right,
one thing, guys, congrats to Terry Corrali, Nick Markakis, and Dick Bowie for being elected to the O's Hall of Fame. That's very special for those guys, and I'm really happy for Terry Corali. Great guy. I love him. Good friend.
Yeah, he's well deserving of being on in the Orioles Hall of Fame. By the way, Friday night, a guest Captain Splash. Do you know who it is, Luke?
It's not Stan Charles, is it?
No, it's not Stan Charles. They
Okay.
would never ask me.
Okay.
They would ask me to be the guy that gets soaked, but not the soaker. Owner David Rubenstein is going to be out there playing Captain Splash for the night, Friday night against the Diamondbacks. That's going to wrap us up here. We thank our friends at the Costas Inn. We thank our friends at the new Atmans at Harbor Point, and of course, ajmichaels.com, AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning at ajmichaels.com. That's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.